KCAA.
The following program is produced by the AM First Radio Network and distributed by Global American Broadcasting, the GAB Radio Network.
Dr. Akil Bashir and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. This week, actually, we're going to continue with a discussion, which we really didn't get to it last week, about the officers being charged in the Breonna Taylor incident, and we're also going to talk about the FBI search of the Mar-a-Lago mansion of former President Donald Trump. But actually, before I get started today, there was one of the, I had a discussion before we went on the air, because we were talking about why is there so much, we really didn't talk about a resolution as to a lot of what we were discussing last week, because we really went in on the issue of the problems that we're having within the community, specifically when it comes to the African American community. And even before I came in, we were talking about this issue of overcompensation and inferiority complex, right? Which I think is a big issue, although it may seem disjointed based upon the discussion, but it really ties back and backs into really what, in essence, was really going on. And actually, it was me and my wife that were having a discussion before, before we came into the studio, and we were talking about certain individuals, and the reason why they become, I guess, oppressive in their nature, and I don't think that it's an issue. So I want to talk about that a little bit, about the whole issue of people who overcompensate, right, and the inferiority complex. I want to talk about that just in general, about what do you think about people who are, oh man, I want to use a word, but it's actually a cuss word, who are actually just like terrible people. They, they're braggadocious. They tend to maybe have the appearance of, feeling confident, but the reality of it is that they're trying to overcompensate, right? Yeah. Do we understand? Because I think I'm going to back into something by us discussing that, but I want to. I'm going to go to you actually first, and I'm going to go to Rosa, and then I'm going to go to Andrea, because I'm interested in hearing about that issue.
I mean, in terms of them being braggadocious and overcompensate just the way they are in general, or in regards to race?
Well, I want to say I'll begin by in general, because the reason I want to begin, because to me, I think that people who are braggadocious and beat their chest in many ways are just people who basically are suffering from an inferiority complex.
Correct. I believe that as well.
Yeah.
In terms of them trying to, like you say, overcompensate for who they actually are. They want that attention. They want you to see them for something totally different than what they actually are. So we have always been led to believe that a person that stands out, that puts themselves out front, that want to be seen, is actually the people that, like you say, suffer from that complex. But in order to, I guess you could say, throw people off, they have to present this certain character about themselves, but in all actuality, they suffer. They suffer from that complex of where they believe that people will actually look at them as something totally different if they don't present themselves in a certain way.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Afraid that their truth will be seen. They have to hide that and cover that up, and a lot of that stuff stems from childhood. You may have been. A lot of that stuff stems from childhood. Yo. There we go. A lot of that stems from childhood, or you may, you could have been like the short one, the not so bright one. So now I have to overcompensate. Look at me now. But that little boy that's insecure is still on the inside, and you think everybody else can see. So you have to be a little louder than the others, but that's still sitting inside you. You still have that issue.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like that thing where we had where all the we kind of saw that a lot of the police officers back in the days were
Yes.
actually being bullied in school. They was actually little chumps, right?
Yeah.
But now that they got this badge now, it makes them big and bad. But that doesn't take away from the fact they actually still chumps.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just the badge that actually gives them that push to make them seem a little bit bigger and badder than they actually are.
Yeah, like that guru, the black guy, rest in peace, Kevin.
Yeah.
Passed. I I had a mixed feelings about him. Mostly, like I did not like him, but I just ran across an interview with him, and he talked about his childhood and what he went through, and everything clicked. I was like, that's why he's so misogynistic. That's why he's like that. Because he was not the one that used to get the women. He was not the one who was looked at. He didn't dress the part. He didn't, and so once he got to a certain status, he went overboard, in my opinion, and he, kind of didn't have a high value for women, in my opinion, but that all stemmed from how he grew up all the way through college,
Yeah.
And what say you, Rosa?
I think that constant need for being in the limelight and this big persona is really projecting in insecurity of a person.
Yes.
I think a lot of the times when a person wants to be the loudest in the room, it just shows that really inside there's some struggles.
Right.
I think it's just projection of an insecurity.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that, this whole, you mentioned about what's really going on as far as like people who like police officers and individuals that maybe back in the day had this issue of this inferiority complex. But I mean, I think that it's just like, okay, like for when you have a sense of, my grandmother used to always say, you can always tell when somebody has never had nothing because when they
Right.
get something, how they act with it.
Right.
And like, for example, when you see a lot of people who come from poverty and then when they get something and they splurge, just like, how many chains do you have to have?
Right.
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 Why would you wear that many gold teeth?
Yeah.
Right. A car for every day
Right.
of the week. That's
Yeah, why would you, show your, like the vehicles? You see how people like pimp their rides to a
Yeah.
certain extent. I mean, they're like, they go over in order to, and I'm just using that as an example of overcompensating for what they did not have, before. You know what I'm saying? And so, and I think that's really important, understanding that concept, because nobody is an exception to that. I think that overcompensation is something that, everybody, regardless of race or whatever, can be subjected to. It just is not black people or
Right.
whatever, short man complex or whatever the case may be. People overcompensate in so many different ways. I mean, that's why plastic surgeons are so rich.
Yes.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because
Correct.
people love to, show something other than what they really are.
Right.
Right. And, so I think that's really when we begin. And I think, that's really important to understand. Like I tend to talk about that a lot when we have the Stop and Frisk Academy. And for those of you who do not know what the Stop and Frisk Academy is, it's something that we have on a monthly basis where we get young men and women together and we talk about how to deal with, police encounters, and we also talk about motivation and other things. And so I think it's important to understand, because one of the things that you have to understand, for the lack of a better term, you have to understand your enemy. You have to understand why people do certain things.
Right.
And I think when you understand why people do certain things, I think it brings more understanding. Like, for example, like domestic violence. I mean, understanding domestic violence has a huge impact on how people respond to domestic violence. For example, you have people who are victims of domestic violence who respond to it in some ways. It kills their self-esteem. That person is acting that way because they get power out of making you undervalue yourself. right? They they make you, it makes them feel better. If I can make you undervalue yourself and have power over you, then it's a psychosis for them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes the women who are victims of domestic violence undervalue themselves, and they feel bad, and but that makes it, and you're able to control them, right? But it's really about the inferiority of the person who's doing it.
Yeah,
True.
correct.
Right? That's really about it. So understanding the concept of why this person is doing it, because many victims of domestic violence blame themselves.
Yeah.
And that is the same scenario when it comes to the issue of what we're dealing with when we're dealing with, racism in this country and discrimination in this country. We're dealing with people who basically are suffering from an inferiority complex, whether they is conscious or not conscious. That's what we're dealing with.
I agree.
And we give them, people only have power that you give them.
Correct.
Right.
And much of the power that they have is we give them that power. So
Idea for a radio show but have no idea where to start? Or have you been hosting a podcast for a while and want to take it to the next level? If so, you need the Gab Radio Network. To host a show on the Gab Radio Network, all you need is your voice, and we'll handle the rest, from technical engineering to full-service audio production and much more. Every show on the Gab Radio Network can be heard on our station on the TuneIn Radio app. Plus, we put all of our shows on our satellite, which is accessed by over 5,500 stations. And here's the best part. You can host from anywhere you want. There are many means to connect to the Gab Radio Network remotely, and our staff of highly trained engineers and producers will make you sound like you're right here in studio. So, if you want to be on the Gab Radio Network, the same network that hosts the Small Business Advocate, Radio MD, and The Federalist, send an email right now to sales@gabradionetwork.com. That's sales@gabradionetwork.com.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
it's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew, where we're continuing with our discussion. Our main focus was to talk about the charges against the Breonna Taylor officers and about the situation with the search warrant on Trump at the Mar-a-Lago mansion. But before we went there, we were talking about the issue of giving people power, and much of the power that has been I guess, perceived by those who happen to be racist in this country is power that we've given them, when in fact, the only power that they have is the power that we've given them.
Right.
See, people only have the power over you that you give them. And the worst thing that you can do is, sometimes it's very difficult when someone has physical power over you, but when they have mental power over you, that's where it becomes very, problematic.
Yes.
And that's why sometimes I'm very careful when I'm speaking on the issue of the problems that we're having in our community, because I don't want us to give them that power. If you ever notice, I very seldom ever use the word privilege. And I never use it because it's not privilege. To me, there is no such thing as white privilege. I don't believe that. I don't believe there's a privilege, because that's not, it's a matter of perception. And when you say, like, okay, if you have, and I'm assuming these stereotypes, and I'm going to use stereotypes because oftentimes they're factual, are true. For example, let's talk about when someone says, well, you can get a loan easier than me, you can get a job easier than me, or you can get this or that easier than me. And the reason why you're able to do this is because, your skin color gives you privilege, right? Well, first of all, if you're getting something based upon simply the fact that you think you look a certain way, that's not privilege. I don't see that as necessarily privilege, right? So in other words, what I see that is as, because who would you want to be that person? Because sometimes you got to ask yourself this question: what in the final analysis do we really want? Right? And when I'm saying that is, I'm saying that I'm sure that, let me give you an example, and I don't want to get too far into it. I know your story, right? And I know where you got, and I know how you got there, right? Then let's just assume that there happens to be somebody who happens to be white, who happens to have maybe more money than you, or maybe have a better position than you, or maybe live in a place that looks better than yours. Do I believe they're privileged? And they did not go through what you went to get where they are. Now, on one hand, someone could say, well, that's just privilege, and that's privilege because, they're white, right? But the reality of it is, in the final analysis, would I rather have their story or your story?
Which one?
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in other words, would I really want? And the thing that I'm the proudest of is not where I'm at; is how I got there.
Yeah, but I think also the question is, do I feel that I can be there, where they at? In other words, because see, I believe that nothing that there's nothing that I can't do.
By your own
perception. Yeah. Exactly. So in that case, I see what you're saying. I get what you get exactly.
Or to the perceived privilege.
Yeah.
And that's not really what it is.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. Let's say today I took everything from you. Not but let's just say you lost everything. And let's just say today they lost everything. You could get back.
Correct.
But they couldn't. Because you earned everything that you have.
So you know how to get it.
Right?
Yeah.
There's that is I would much rather be in that position. It's just like when I watch athletes, right? That's why I've always been a big fan of Jerry Rice. Because Jerry Rice is definitely not the most athletic person that played that position. There was a person who said that Andre Rison was a better athlete than Jerry Rice. And for those of you who do not know who Andre Rison is, he was a wide receiver. Yeah. Initially, he played with Atlanta Falcons, and then he eventually was. He went to some. Who did he go to eventually? Did he go to Green Bay? I can't remember. But at any rate, When he got traded, someone said he was a better athlete, and someone mentioned this. I was watching this clip who said he had a faster 40, he had better dexterity, he was a better, he was blessed with more God-given athlete. Jerry Rice had a very slow 40-yard dash run, running a 40-yard dash. It was very slow in comparison to a wide receiver, but he had a work ethic that exceeded those other people he was competing against. That's why he was number one. That intrigues me. I respect that. Right. And so that I see that as when you use that as far as us as human beings are concerned, I think that it means the same thing, is that we just don't understand the significance of our story.
Yeah.
See, we belittle our story to where we feel like we're victims and we're not proud of it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot to be said for, let's just say, Rosa, who has her parents are, and correct me if I'm wrong, they came here as immigrants to this country, correct?
Yeah.
And you got your degree, right?
Yeah.
Looking at going to pursuing a law career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how would I compare her story
as being privileged,
right, to someone who basically daddy was a lawyer, and then you because of daddy's daddy, then you got into this high school, this college, and this law school, and now you're working for the largest law firm in the country and all this other stuff. Now, I mean, is that a real story?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's not privilege to me.
Exactly.
To me, that's just basically, it's nothing special. I'm not intrigued by that. It doesn't really move me. Right? Because somebody gave you something doesn't seem like privilege. Privilege is when, you come from the situation that we came from over 300 years ago to where we are now. Now, that's special. Why do we cry when we say, well, we came here, we was, whatever, we was, yeah, but look at where we are. You could not do that, man. Think about being not a slave. Slave is not the right word. We were not slaves. Slave is a humane institution for human beings. The United States Supreme Court determined that black people were not human beings. We were farm animals, basically.
Right.
So you've gone from being considered a farm animal by the United States Supreme Court to being the president of the United States. That's privilege. That's special.
Gotcha.
And we don't understand that because they spend so much time as the person who is the batterer, who's the person who imposes domestic violence. They want to belittle your accomplishments because they don't want you to believe, that the greatness of who you are.
Got you.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what they do. They try to belittle you and make you believe it. And so we cry so much about our circumstances, but because the thing about it is, the reason like, what was that song? Who sang that song? Was it 50 Cent? He said, just because you can't do it, homie, don't mean it can't be done.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
You could not do that. You cry, over anything. You cry because you get pulled over by the police.
Yeah.
We can deal, look at what we deal with. You see what I'm saying? So there's something to that, mentally, physically, and spiritually, about our people and people like us.
Yeah.
And we belittle that, and we need to take more pride in that. Please do not touch that dial. We'll be right back on the other side with Justice Watch.
There's a new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host Attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com. Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep Your Hand on the Plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands. Serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch. The Mar-a-Lago search warrant at the Trump's mansion. But anyway, so we got on this subject, and like every week I get distracted. Right?
Sorry.
But you know, I think it's really, really an important discussion that we're having, so that we can kind of like, you know, keep things. I like to keep things in perspective, and help us kind of understand. And sometimes, no matter what you say, it goes beyond. You know, but it's just the indoctrination that we have in our society, where we actually begin to believe things that aren't really true, right?
Correct.
And the whole point of, and it begins, and it crosses every paradigm among black people, from those who we consider to be accommodationalists, to those who we call Uncle Toms, which are sometimes called accommodationalists, to all the way up to those who believe that they're Pan-Africanists or black nationalists. There's a level of that that makes us believe that we're less than, and it allows us to. It goes much deeper than, you know, great men like Martin Luther King Jr. and other people and their accomplishments. It goes much deeper than that, because you know, we sometimes don't understand the greatness of just everyday elders and people in the past who held it down and put us in what is a privileged position. And sometimes we don't see it that way, and we overlook it. It's just like sometimes that's what we do as human beings. When you get something, then you want things, and as soon as you get them, then all of a sudden it's, you know, you don't appreciate the value of it until you don't have it. And so that's the way I feel about, you know, us in the position that we're in. I just feel like, you know, we have to understand why people are doing things to us. And then we have to understand, because every time they do something to you, whenever you're going through crisis can either allow you to become better, or it can stunt you.
Yeah.
It can paralyze you.
Yeah.
And I don't want us to be paralyzed by a lot of what's going on, because we're so consumed with, some of what's going on, that sometimes we don't spend enough time of thinking, okay, how can we say, we know what you're going to do? Like my grandfather says, birds, fish swim and ducks quiet. I mean, that's what they do. We already know, because it happens every day. We could have the same show every day about the same thing that they're doing. It's still we've been doing this show. It's the same police killings, the same injustice.
Yep.
Everything is the same. But what we can change is we can change how we pursue certain things.
Correct. And I think that what was you saying in regards to we become paralyzed is two ways of how we deal with it once we present it with it, whether we live up to it and we excel, or we become paralyzed by the information that's been passed on to us. And just like we were just talking about just a minute ago at the break, it comes back down to the fact that we understand that there's a lot of information that's put out to us in terms of us being inferior and stuff like that, is whether or not we believe someone's perception of us.
Right.
If we believe that perception, then we become that.
Yeah.
And we can't get any greater. I remember, I don't know who it was that said, you become inferior by your own consent.
Yes.
If you consent to it, if someone tell you that, and you consent
you
to it,
buy
then you
into it,
become, you become inferior. But I think that it's good that we talk about the problem all the time, and yet the solution lies within us not becoming victims of this over and over again, because we can do anything that we want to do. Like we was just talking about at the break, someone can tell you, hey, you can't get this loan because you're African American, or you Latino American, or whatever it is, or you can't go to this certain school or whatever.
Right.
But if we believe that, then the great majority of us hear it, but we don't go and pursue it because we've heard it from somebody.
Yeah.
I was just looking at this episode of Martin last night, because I think that the psychological aspect of how stuff is disseminated to us, I think that it affects us in our everyday life. And he laughed about the fact that, hey, why does the white pool ball got to knock in all the other pools?
Yeah.
You remember that saying?
Yeah.
And he said, why is the brown rice, is in the box and the
Right.
so but I think that when we begin to see all of this stuff and it begins to fester in our mind, we begin to fall victim to all of this stuff that has been promoted to us all the years. I mean, from knee high, from real little, as children. I mean, seeing the picture up on the wall, who we believe God is, all the way up to Santa Claus. Our perception has been totally, just been out of whack. And I think we believe all of this, that we are inferior, and so therefore we can't, become better individuals.
Yeah, as a whole,
Right.
Yeah, and we talk about, were you going to say something, Rosa?
No, I was just going to say, I think that victimization almost contributes to a heightened imposter syndrome that keeps us from really achieving greater things and pushing ourselves to positions that could help our community and also contribute to great success for our community. I mean, I think of you, Mr. Ali. You have your own law firm. You don't answer to anyone. And looking at your background, I'm sure you doubted yourself at some point, but those doubts didn't keep you from continuing. And it sounds like a lot of our community people tend to stay stagnant because they believe this victimization mentality that contributes to a heightened imposter syndrome.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And you go try one place. Like I had a friend of mine who went to get a loan, and money was A1, everything was good, and they kept, well, we need this. She bring that. Well, we need this. She's like, I feel like they're trying to over-verify them like they are. They finally denied her after like months of going through this. They finally denied her. They found a reason to deny her that they made up. So she quit. It's going to be like that everywhere I go now. No, that's one door that closed. Go to the next one. But she already in her head, I tried, see, and they closed the door and they just give up.
What's the best resource to have?
The best resource.
Best resource when we talk about economics or business. What is the thing that you have to have? When we talk about what is the type of capital that we never talk about?
Credit?
Sweat capital.
Sweat capital.
There you go. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If you ain't got sweat capital is the best capital to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
You're
so
not gonna succeed
sometimes,
at all without that.
right. So sometimes, I mean, you know, we underestimate and undervalue the significance of having sweat capital. As I always tell people is that there may be things that you may have that I don't have. For example, you may know people I don't know. You may have credit that I don't have. You may have access to capital that I don't have. But the one thing that you will never do is you will never, ever outwork me.
Yeah, correct.
It's completely impossible.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and sometimes we undervalue the significance of good old hard work.
Yeah.
And when you're given those values about what it really takes to do, you know, like right now, today, the first job that I ever really had was hauling hay. You know, when I was like 13 or 14 years old, I was in hayfields hauling hay with grown men, right? And you know what? I'd go back in that hayfield today again if I had to, right? You have some people, and we talked about this before, they could not do that. They would literally, it would, you know, you ever see Trading Places?
Yeah.
Do you ever see that, Rosa? You see what happened when they lost everything?
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? You know, so you know, you know, we can do that, and I think that we have to value our you know, because you know that was one of the things that I believe that we have to go back to in our community, because you can determine a community by the way it values and respects its elders.
Absolutely.
And we have to and sometimes we look back at some of the things. I mean, there's so much richness and so much greatness in just the way that they dealt with things. I know there's things that people can criticize them and said they should have done this and they should have done that, but their survival is, you know, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we have to begin to start, you know, valuing what they did. I mean, some of the young people very critical of their elders because they felt like that basically it's all about money today, and you know, I know how to make money, and you don't know what you're doing, and this is why we are where we are, and you know, all of that. But look where it's got you.
Yeah.
You know, you're in the same position, but you just have a degree. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can have a degree, but you still are being discriminated against, and you still, in comparison to your wealth, are the same way that your parents and grandparents are.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you're not as smart as you really think you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that we have to recognize and we have to value, and it's going to help us move forward and deal with obviously some of the crisis. And I want to apologize to everybody for being, you know, off the subject a little bit, but I just felt like these are things that we need to discuss because I do have an obligation to, you know, speak truth to power.
That's right.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think you're spot on, and I also think that there's the whole aspect of, you know, once people that have had hardship in their lives, right, minorities per se, have made it to the top, some end up internalizing racism
Right.
to the point that they become the worst enemy of the communities that we live in
Right.
because they understand the struggle, but they turned against our own community simply because they internalize racism, and in some aspect they feel superior.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's also something that really affects the upward movement of our communities, that we have people in power who are people of color and understand the struggle, but don't speak about it once they make it there.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that we're not saying
Nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host Attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com. Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep Your Hand on the Plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew. We're continuing on our discussion about we're supposed to be on a discussion about the charging of the officers in the Breonna Taylor and the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago. I think that since we've been talking about inferiority complexes, I think we might want to start, because I know we're at the last segment, but I do want to hit a little bit on your boy, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Yeah. So let's just see. So for some of you who do not know, the FBI executed a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, the residence of former U.S. President Donald Trump in Palm Beach, Florida, on August the 8th, 2022. Agents seized 11 sets of classified documents, one set at the highest classification level, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information, 4 sets at the top secret level, 3 sets at the secret level, and 3 sets of papers at the confidential level. The search warrant released a few days after the search showed that the FBI was investigating Trump for 3 possible federal crimes: removal or destruction of records, obstruction of justice, and violating the Espionage Act regarding unauthorized retention of national defense information. So, I mean, of course, a lot of the defense that we're hearing is the issue of executive privilege. That's one of the things that he's talking about. And he's also talking about, what did he say? They're violating his First Amendment rights or something, constitutional rights. So those are some of the things that he's talking about as far as, But, I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, as far as what we get out of this, I mean, are we surprised?
No.
At all that he was doing something like this?
No.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you would expect for someone like that. And, the question is going to be, are they ultimately going to prosecute him? Would that ever happen?
I said in the past that no matter what, and I think I was speaking in regards to the January 6th incident when I said that nothing is going to happen to him. But I think this thing right here is a different level. I mean, because he playing with classified documents. Basically, whatever it is, it had to have something great importance.
Right.
For the FBI, because nowhere in the history of the United States have the FBI raided a former president's house.
Yes.
Not even Nixon had it that bad.
Right.
So,
but they're riding for him, though. I hope it is, but they are riding for him. They're like, oh, it's a travesty. When you're watching certain news channels, they are going completely ballistic about it. And then what is it? The Kentucky, what is he? The governor or something he put in on Saturday that he wants them to repeal the Espionage Act all of a sudden. Wow. They're riding for him. But, I mean, shoot, what do you expect? To me, I think this dude did all of that. He was going to sell that stuff later. That's just my personal opinion.
Maybe,
he was going to sell it later. I mean, come on, you buried your wife on a golf course. I don't expect nothing less than that from you. Yeah. You're a freaking idiot.
Well, right?
The guy has been impeached twice, acquitted
right.
times. I would love to see, some sort of criminal action, criminal charges, but I don't know.
It doesn't look like it, right?
Hopeful for some reason.
Me either.
Well, you don't think it's going to happen? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think so. He was impeached twice and nothing happened.
I don't know. I'm trying to, it says it turns out that the investigation against Trump has to do with the disappearance of secret documents from the White House related to the development of nuclear weapons by the U.S. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think that it's going to depend on, I think that there's a lot of people who are probably thinking, on one hand, that this is kind of, the politics as usual. They're going after the president. They're searching his house, and he's escaped everything. Nothing's really going to happen. And then I can, on one hand, I can understand that, but I mean the fact that you have, and you mentioned it earlier, or when you talked about, the Nixon and the Watergate and all that. I mean, getting a search warrant to search a president's house because of residence because of the disappearance of secret documents relative to nuclear weapons is nothing to sneeze about.
Right.
And, I mean, assuming I think that it kind of, we joke about Trump a lot. And I mean, in many ways, we kind of like, it's somebody, he's so, he's a clown.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's dangerous.
Very.
And I think that we sometimes don't understand how dangerous this guy could really be. I mean, he was the cause. I mean, when you have a president of the United States that basically incites riots that's going to cause people to go into, the Capitol and do what they did, first of all, and then, kind of, try to promote some sort of, civil war in this country. I mean, that's a dangerous person, and the fact that he, he's sick. And then, come on, man. I mean, if he's got that type of information, and he's taking those boxes home.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's just not. That's just unbelievable, and that's what happens when you become something and when you become, how did he get there? And and that's the problem is that basically he's not a self-made man.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's still. That's why he acts so childish, because he's not really. That's the kind of human being he is. That's how he got there.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you see rich people who have always been that way, they always act like children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even into their 60s and 70s, they act like I've represented some.
Yeah.
That are millionaires, and they're like, I cannot believe this dude is 10 years older than me or 15 years older than me. He's in the 60s or 70s, and they're acting like a literal baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's exactly how he acts, because his daddy only gave him a few $millions to get started.
Yeah, a few million.
But I think he's the type of person that he's the type of person that will take something and use it as leverage later on.
Oh yeah, that's exactly
He's the
what
type
he
of
does.
person they do that. But I think that he underestimated the government itself. He figured that what he does in business all the time, to use this leverage over people's head, I can do this, to the United States
You
government.
think he's untouchable?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then he's just like John Gotti.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, how many times did he get acquitted when he went to trial?
Right.
He never would have thought that he would have gotten. Eventually, they got him.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing that you can do is underestimate. Again, reality.
And then it comes on the heels of all these hearings for January 6th.
Yeah.
And if they feel that they couldn't get him one way,
To try another.
get him another way.
Yeah.
What's sad though? What really saddened me though? All of a sudden now, they want to talk about defunding the FBI now. You heard about that? But nobody wants. They want to get mad when they talk about defund the police after killing all these black folks. But then they do this to Trump. Now they're talking about defund the FBI.
But he still wants to run for president.
But he still wants to run for president, and unfortunately, I don't want to put that in the atmosphere. Cancel.
I mean, could you imagine what it would be like with him in prison? Like in a real prison?
Oh.
I think that's where he needs to go. You see what I'm saying? That's the reality.
Orange man with an orange suit.
Oh my God. Wouldn't that be a trip? Man.
We probably have more of his supporters trying to raid the FBI.
Right. Yeah, trying to do a prison break. If you have prison guards, he'd be trying to pay off.
Oh
doing
my God.
politics inside. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was going to say something else, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want nobody.
You tell us off the air. You tell us off the air.
Yeah. Well, we done ran out of time, man. Like always, I got distracted.
See, y'all talk too much.
Right. Well, on behalf of the crew, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, same channel. And until that time, stay.
Syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host Attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with Attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
The following program on KCAA is pre-recorded.
And its platforms. It's Guys Guy Radio.